Breaking in the past hour, I have formally responded to the White House regarding President Biden's ask for me to step down from the Naval Academy Board. He asked 11 people in total. I formally told them today I'm not resigning. I've said that all along. Here's part of the rationale that I put in that letter. Termination of membership on an Academy Board of Visitors would be illegal. Congressional statutes expressly provide the date of expiration for Academy Board of Visitor membership positions. For example, my tenure as a member of the Naval Academy Board of Visitors is governed by 10 U.S. Code, which when applied requires that my tenure does not expire until after December 30, 2021. This result is supported by a recent United States Supreme Court decision reaffirming that Congress can continue to provide, quote, tenure protection recognized for decades as valid by the courts for presidential appointments. So I've asked them, if you don't agree with that, tell me what legal basis you have. So far, nothing in response.
I look forward to hearing the response, Sean, if you get one. But we do have Tennessee Congressman Mark Green, who is a member of the United States Military Academy Boards of Visitors. He's been sounding off on this issue as well, and he's going to join us in just a few minutes to weigh in. And while President Biden is trying to politically purge these nonpartisan military boards, he's also pushing his liberal agenda by campaigning for California Governor Gavin Newsom ahead of tomorrow's recall election. A lot of people are saying, Sean, this is an effort to distract from what's going on right now in Afghanistan and take attention away from his terrible botched withdrawal.
No question about it. Everything that they can do, they're doing to make sure that we're not talking about those Americans stranded over there in Afghanistan. And by the way, this comes after the New York Times released a report saying that the administration mistakenly targeted and killed an innocent aid worker for an American company in that drone strike in Afghanistan, in Kabul, when they tried to kill the supposed ISIS leader of that attack against 13 service members. Apparently, it wasn't such. It was an aid worker that they killed. The victim died along with 9 members of his family, including 7 children. When a U.S. drone struck his car, military officials say that their target was an ISIS suicide bomber.
So sad to hear. And former President Trump, who will also be on our show tomorrow at 6 p.m., make sure you tune in for that. He's sounding off on the Biden administration, saying this, quote, our country is far more susceptible to attack by outside terrorist groups than ever before. Our enemies all over the world are inspired by what just happened in Afghanistan. Our reputation is gone. Our borders are broken. Inflation is raging, and COVID continues. End of his quote there.
Yeah, we have so much to break down with President Trump tomorrow at 6 o'clock. He'll kick off the show. Make sure you tune in because we got to get to this. There's so many issues that we want to get to with President Trump. We're going to try to get to as many questions as we can during the show with him. But earlier today, Biden's Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, was in the hot seat to face questions on that withdrawal from Afghanistan. Once again, he defended the administration's handling. Take a listen.
Even the most pessimistic assessments did not predict that government forces in Kabul would collapse while U.S. forces remained. The evacuation itself was an extraordinary effort under the most difficult conditions imaginable.
Yeah, actually, people did predict it, Lindsay. They just don't want to admit it because, you know, and by the way, the mainstream media doesn't want to report it because why would they want to make sure that they don't do their job as extensions of the White House press office? But Tennessee Congressman, combat veteran Mark Green, he's a member of the House Foreign Affairs Committee. He was there today grilling Antony Blinken. He played a big role in that hearing. He joins us now. Congressman, thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
You bet. A lot to get to about that hearing. But first, you're a veteran. You've been vocal on this administration. You know about all of us who've been asked to resign from the Academy boards. You serve on the West Point board, but you are appointed through the House of Representatives. So you're not at law, you know, they're not trying to remove you because they can't. But how big do you think these efforts to get people like me to resign? And were you offended when they had Press Secretary Jen Psaki talk about our qualifications to serve on those boards?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for just keeping hounding these guys on this. The President of the United States doesn't get to pick who is oversight. You know, I mean, he can't pick who oversights the academies like this. You know, it's very clear, and I really appreciated your letter, which showed the Supreme Court's ruling on this. that, you can't just throw people to the curb and decide to just wholly have your folks on the board. So I appreciated your letter. And I will say, in terms of qualifications, the point of that board is to get a diverse set of ideology. On one, point with the critical race theory and all this stuff they're trying to force at the academies, they say, oh, we need all these different ideas. And yet then they say certain people aren't qualified to be on the board. And so it's just a contradiction.
Yeah, totally agree.
Congressman, I do want to turn back to the hearing today with the Secretary of State being questioned by the Foreign Affairs Committee. You are on that committee, and you questioned Blinken's credibility. I want to play a clip of your question to him for our viewers. Watch.
My colleagues and I had hundreds of people on the phone that were U.S. citizens sitting at the gates, and they couldn't get in. That's a failure on you.
Congressman, do you feel like there was any accountability taken, or was it a deflection?
Oh, 100% deflection from Anthony Blinken. And I made the point today in the committee that he was just following his leader, President Biden, who has done nothing but blame Trump, blame everyone else. And today, several of the Democrats echoed the same comments. It's all Trump's fault. Ridiculous. It was very clear that President Trump, had conditions-based withdrawals, and in fact stopped withdrawal and bombed the Taliban back into compliance at least 3 times during the latter part of his tenure. This president failed to do that, failed to respond when the Taliban broke the rules, and this was supposed to be a power-sharing agreement, but they overthrew the other side of the power-sharing agreement. And the Biden administration did nothing. So they have no credibility. They can't come in here and blame Trump. It's ridiculous.
I thought it was interesting, and this might be being picky, but he was offered the opportunity to testify in person, and it seems like he chose not to. He wanted to be in the office, draped with those beautiful flags in the State Department. What does it say to you that he didn't want to be sitting there? Because I thought your questioning was very powerful, and I just don't think he wanted to be across from people like you and have to look you in the eye.
Yeah, and you take a guy like Brian Mast, who, has 2 prostheses for legs now. I mean, look at him and tell him that he doesn't have value in what he's saying, or there isn't weight in his words. I'm an Afghan veteran. Fortunately, I came home with no injuries. But a guy like Brian Mast, a true hero, Blinken didn't want to face him. I am certain of that.
Congressman, where do we go from here on this? What's the next steps? This is just part 1 of this hearing so far.
So we got to get Americans home. That's the most important thing. Yes. And one of my questions today was, what's the plan? Because we told these people to destroy the documents after, the military left. The Taliban were searching people. Those who had documents, those who had U.S. phone numbers in their cell phones were executed. So we told them, take all that stuff out, get rid of your documents. Well, you can't leave the country in an airplane. You can't walk across a border if you don't have documents. So, he says he has a plan to bring people home. Well, how do you get those people documents? And that's our number 1 priority, getting every American and every ally who helped us home.
It's so sad that our own government is now relying on all of these brave former veterans and their groups who are going in and doing the work that the State Department should have. There are so many times when we are taught in the military, you don't leave anyone behind. We've left a bunch of people, and now it's like, well, some of them wanted to stay. It is, I think it's so undermining of what America stands for. But I can't get over the fact that this is where we are now as a country, that we've gone from leave no man behind to just leave some people.
Sean, I think I saw a poll the other day that said 87, 88%, something like that, of Americans feel like they should not have left without every American being gone. I mean, I can't think of the last time 87 or 88% of Americans agreed on anything. But one thing's for sure we agree on: you don't leave Americans behind in a combat zone. This guy is a failure. This presidency is a failure. The Secretary of State is a failure. They both need to resign.
Can I ask you a question? The White House told us over and over again, Jen Psaki from the podium and other officials, that these folks would all be vetted. Now we're hearing reports that Afghans are coming into this country with measles. And that clearly doesn't look like they were vetted from a medical standpoint, never mind a national security standpoint. How concerned are you and your colleagues?
You know, I'm not as concerned. I mean, obviously, communicable diseases is something that's very concerning, you know, COVID, all that. I'm more concerned about the, Taliban guy who snuck into the crowd. There were as much as 30% at some of these facilities that don't have documentation of any kind, meaning we have no biometrics, fingerprints, we have no, retina scans, we have no way to confirm who they are. It's very possible that we got somebody who's a bad guy in that crowd.
Congressman, before we let you go, you and so many other Republicans are calling for accountability for Antony Blinken for this administration, but you are in the minority. He is probably not going to resign. He's not likely going to get fired. So how do you hold him accountable?
Well, what we can do is discharge petitions. We can convince our colleagues to actually, there are a few Democrats who see this as egregious. So we can get hearings held. We can get, the pointed questions asked, and hopefully hold these guys accountable. What we also did is sent letters to the State Department saying you must preserve all the documents. So that becomes a legal request. If they destroy it, it's contempt of Congress. So that when we are in charge in 22, and we are going to be in charge, after the 22 elections, we can really get to the bottom of it.
I think it's great that you guys are keeping their feet to the fire now, these discharge petitions, because until that time, you still need to fight, and I appreciate that spirit. So, Congressman Mark Green, thank you for your service. Thanks for joining us, and thanks for holding their feet to the fire today.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Hey, I'm Rob Finnerty. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please join the conversation in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, too. Hit the bell icon to be alerted to breaking news. And remember, there's a whole lot more on Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news network. Newsmax TV, we're real news for real people.